When I first came into this world of like personal development, which I think is certainly tangential to building a business. I don't know anyone who's really building a business and having real success that has also not done some amount of personal growth work. And for me, I was sitting at home as stay-at-home dad late at night watching TV, taking care. I have 2 young children I'm taking care of, and my wife's supporting the family, and I'm sitting there night after night watching late night TV and seeing that Tony Robbins commercial. What do they call those things? Infomercials? I probably watched it a dozen times before I finally picked up the phone and ordered it. And I paid the extra $30 to get it on CD instead of cassette. And when I got that CD set and I went through it religiously, I'll tell you what, because even though I had nothing going on in my life except for, a great family, I hadn't made any money in 6 years. I hadn't had a job in 6 years. But for some reason, I still thought I was like really smart. I thought I was smarter than everyone else. But then when I listened to those CDs and I realized how much expertise there was out there and how Tony Robbins was just conduit of all this amazing information out there, he was the person that was sort of bringing it to me. I was like, wow, there's a lot. That was my first exposure to this idea of mastery. And I was a heck of a lot older than Dan when I learned that lesson. I was a heck of a lot older than you, Chris, when you learned that lesson. I could guess the time, when you learned it was in your early 20s. But yeah, that idea of that growth is possible and you can keep on getting better and better and better. And, Dan just said something that I think it probably went by pretty quick, but he said, once you have start to accomplish and you've gotten to a certain level of skill and you watch that beginner and the beginner falling over and over, he said, respect. And that's the thing is like the people that have done the work and that have gotten a mastery or have approached mastery or become highly skilled, they always respect the beginners that are putting into work. They always, they're not the ones laughing at the people falling on that rail. They're the ones that are respecting those people because they've put in the time. They know what it takes. And they can see success. They can see success before the person that's fallen on that rail, they don't see the success. But that expert who's seen them put in those reps and they're starting to see them do a few good things, they can see it. They can see it before the beginner can. And I feel like that's like our role in business for all 3 of us, really, right? Is a lot of times someone could be starting out and it just seems like a slog and they don't feel like they're getting anywhere, but we can see their success before even they can. And I think that is a sacred part of this, of the work we do, the 3 of us do, and our whole team does, is holding that space for those people so they can fall and hit that rail over and over and over, but also so where we can start to see that their movement forward, the early steps of gaining skill and gaining expertise. That's our job.
Yeah, definitely the moments where you do actually get some level of progress, like a little bit. It's the comparison of yourself to who you were before and not to where someone else is today that I think helps people keep moving forward too. Because Dan, you meant, well, at the end of the day, I was better at this one thing. I wasn't not falling. I wasn't a master of it after one day, but there was a level of progress that what you focus on in those challenging early days as a beginner, it's super important to know where to focus your energy and put your attention in those moments in order to be able to keep going.
That is a really great point. And I think it's so massively important to pay attention to the progression and to realize that like getting the tiniest little bit better on any individual day is massive, because that's all you're ever going to do. Really, you're never going to, in pretty much anything, I think, you're never really going to go have like some massive skill jump within a day. But you can have smaller jumps. And I see a lot of people get discouraged because they don't see the massive jump. They want to be able to roll up and hit the rail and pop off and have it look super smooth and super stylish and be 100% confident that they're not going to fall. And that's the goal. And so then if maybe they're crashing 100% of the time and then now they're crashing 80% of the time, it could be so easy to approach that and say, well, I'm still crashing all the time. I'm not getting any better, except that now you're falling 20% less. And then if the next day you're following 10% less and then 10% less, and then, pretty soon after a week or two, you're at the point where, yeah, you're only crashing 20% of the time instead of 80 or 100% of the time. That's massive. But I do think that's a skill to look for those small levels of progression and say, like, okay, well, how did I get better? And then how am I going to get better tomorrow? And just realizing that you're moving along the road to your eventual goal. But I mean, it sounds sort of cliche, right? To say, like, oh, it's not going to happen overnight. But it's funny how many people I think really do sort of beat themselves up when something doesn't happen overnight.
Hey, Launch family, one more thing before you go. There's a few spots left in Jeff's Launch Intensive workshop. This is a live in-person training with Jeff, Dan, and Justin in the room. Only 40 people are going to be there. Small, intimate, and super, super powerful. If you'd like to check that out, all you have to do is go to getyouLaunched.com today. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.